we did Gladiator, everybody on the set, all of the English actors, Russell, Joaquin, a lot of people always saying, oh, Joaquin seems very unusual. Yeah, he's a very unusual person, but unbelievably disciplined.
Right.
Every night, whatever, people going out to dinner, going to have a drink or something to relax. We've all shot all day, we're exhausted. And he'd be like, Tomas, I'll come over to your room and pick you up in a little bit, but I need to do 45 minutes of accent preparation for the scene tomorrow, because he was doing the English accent.
Wow.
And he never missed a day.
Wow.
At the Broadcast Film Critics Awards the other night, somebody came up to Joaquin, a woman came up, and she said, I really want to thank you because you really helped my career. And he said, why? And she said, well, the first time I ever did an interview, I sat down with you, and I sat down to do the interview, and I said, wow, so what did you think of the film? And Joaquin said to her, what did you think of the film? And she said, well, I haven't seen it. And she said to him, you changed my life, because from that moment on, I saw every film I was going to do an interview about.
Funny because like Joaquin Phoenix, when we were doing Pretty Sweet, you had like Joaquin Phoenix. He was just there.
Yeah,
he
Joaquin grew up skating, so we were prepping her at the time.
Right.
And we were doing rehearsals at my office, and I was like, oh, we're going to film. We're going out to film. You want to come by? And he loved skating, and so yeah, he came by and visited while we were shooting.
I thought it was amazing that Joaquin he'd just be chilling with us, doing our thing, and like, I think we were driving from spot to spot, and he's like, hey, when do you guys like break for lunch? And we're like, no, we don't break. Like, we just keep going and just get the shit. And the next day, he showed up with like a huge box of burritos for everybody. Yeah. And I thought that was just the coolest thing that he's like.
He was worried about you guys. Like, they don't eat, but they're like killing themselves.
I just thought that, I mean, like, he didn't have to do that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we're fine. Like, if people want to stop and go grab something real quick, you know what I mean? But I just thought that was amazing.
He's a good man.
Right.
And part that you were gonna do and you had to at the last minute back out.
I could tell you films that I loved that I would have gone. God, I would have loved to have given that part a go, but they were done so extraordinary.
Give me one of those. What part were you the most jealous of?
Oh, her.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Spike
wow.
Jonze, her. Yeah. Oh, I just thought it was just. And I mean, Joaquin was, as he is in every single performance he gives, he was astonishing in it and beautiful and heartfelt and so fucking present, So her would be one of them, that I saw that film. It was my favorite film of that year.
How hard is it to walk away or turn down or not be able to do something like Inherent Vice or Gravity that's somebody else's bag that they're working on because you're probably focused on the stuff that's going to come through your shingle, right?
Yeah, but I want to remain open because I also know that typically there's many more instances of individuals who are pretty flexible and thoughtful, making themselves an island without meaning to, just because it's convenient, and also because it's kind of where your interest lies. But I'm really fortunate in that first and foremost I'm friends with PTA.
Yeah,
and he is so much more than a filmmaker. He's just someone that you just go, if I could spend a big chunk of every day with this guy, I'd be a better person. So that's great. And he and my dad are pals, and so the three of us are going out to dinner tomorrow. And by the way, that to me is as exciting a moment as literally being not just front and center, but Steely Dan is playing at my birthday party. To me, it's like the LCD lyrics. Daft Punk is playing at my house.
So PTA is coming to my dinner. Yeah,
PTA, and we're having a six top.
What did you? I mean, when you were rumored to be in that, it kind of was like when they announced that Brolin, Bardem, and Tommy Lee were doing No Country, because I was like, oh well, now I can't see anybody else in that.
Right.
So, did you wind up? What did you think of what Joaquin did when you wound up seeing it?
A, nobody should have done that movie besides him. B, Paul was never really thinking about me for it.
Okay.
And it's not because he's cryptic. It's because he's been on that's kind of like his Scorsese and De Niro thing.
Yeah.
I would at this point though, I will I'd be happy to offer Mr. Anderson any and every film I do from now on. I mean, I love watching what they do.
You've obviously had this great career and a lot of accomplishments, but you seem to also be
particularly adept at being the buddy in a buddy movie. You just, I mean, so many times you've been that guy, and it almost feels like you're Hollywood's go-to. We need someone to play opposite. It's almost like you're a great musician that way. We need someone to play opposite Will Ferrell, and who is that guy? And you seem to be perfect.
We have this repellent star, and we have to find someone who's able to get along with him enough to portray his best friend. No, the truth. There's only it's only one best friend part I had to play where I didn't quite feel like the person's best friend by the end of the project. But for the most part, I do. This guy wants to know who.
I know. I love that. Our cameraman went, huh? Like, no, we're not. It would be rude to ask, but who was it?
I don't want to say. But what I was going to say is that.
Good try.
Is that you do end up becoming best friends with people in a way, like even in a movie that wasn't necessarily a comedy or whatever. Like obviously, Will and I are very, very close friends. But Joaquin Phoenix and I just did this movie, The Sisters Brothers, and Joaquin is like a wild animal. It's like watching a raccoon go through the garbage on screen. You're like, what is it going to do now?
Right.
So I didn't know what it was going to be like with him, and it did take us a second. It took him a second to trust me that I was just there to do the best I could, and I wasn't going to judge him or whatever. And now, I swear to God, I would do anything for that guy. I would take a bullet for Joaquin Phoenix.
My favorite actor was Andrew Garfield, and he was like sort of the equivalent of that for me. And I still look up to, I still see him as such a role model in terms of how he's lived out his career. I'd also say Joaquin Phoenix, I think, is just the greatest.
I just naturally have a lot of empathy toward Joaquin, and so I'm like,
okay, that's fair.
Joaquin Phoenix is such a method actor. When I see him falling down the stairs, I knew he really fell down the stairs, and not just once, 100 times. And so I was like, oh. If he looks cold, he's really cold.
I just saw Joaquin. He walked past before. You guys were incredible together in The Joker. How much does he deserve that Oscar?
Yeah, I think he did a great job. He's a wonderful actor. He totally committed to the role. So, we'll see what happens, but he was terrific. He is terrific.
He is terrific.
You've eaten well. You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit, but your feast is nearly over.
I always wanted Joaquin Phoenix for Batman. It's funny. I think we were just sort of out of time with our idea. I think because I understood that comics, that there's room for all different types of titles, but I think Hollywood at that time was still kind of in the golden age of comics, and they were still just doing the classic titles in classic ways. But I was always interested in film. Now they have comics where the Joker's the good guy and Batman's the bad guy, and I think audiences are now, they've seen enough comic films that they're game for that. So I think we were a little bit out of time with our idea. Todd Phillips is a good friend, and I've heard about this Joker movie, and he's talking about it in a very similar way we were talking about it back then. So I can't wait to see what he does with it. So I think everything has its time, and sometimes you don't quite line up with the zeitgeist.